What's up, everybody? Nigel Marcellus here, and this is the second installment of the conversation featuring special guest Cynthia.
That's me.
Cyn. All right, so I'm giving you the keys. Before me and Junior, we did this video. We are not really strangers questions. We were reading the questions, bouncing off. But because you're getting your master's in counseling psychology, I got it right this time?
Yes.
Yeah. Counseling psychology. I know this is really in your wheelhouse of having really therapeutic conversations and breaking things down. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give you the chance. Well, you always read me to filth, but I'm gonna give you the day today to read me for filth and really help me unpack some things from a real counseling perspective. So you got the keys.
That being
You
said,
got the keys. You got it. I'm over here.
So, disclaimer: I'm definitely not by any means a licensed therapist at all. So don't use this as a substitute for therapy. I just said that because I always hear people in podcasts that do counseling podcasts say that. So I was like, I'm just gonna disclose that now.
Okay.
And I feel like it's less reading you for filth and more just sprinkling in tidbits of existential anxiety. So maybe a bit of projecting that I do onto you as well. So
thank you.
Yeah.
But honestly, why I appreciate having you here though is a lot of the conversations that we have, you're able to articulate things in which I often can't see for myself. I consider myself very self-aware, but I think sometimes that gets in the way of being able to really look at problems. And you're really good. You have the vocabulary, you have the knowledge. You're in school studying this, so you are the perfect person for something like this. So
yeah.
The conversation part 2 featuring Cyn. Cyn, where do we begin?
All right, that's a good question. So,
Okay.
For this interview, I thought about a couple of different ways of navigating this.
Okay.
Because you didn't really give me a lot of you didn't give me a lot of a lot of meat to work with.
Yeah.
And so the boundaries that I was given was that any and everything is on the table.
Fair.
Which is very vague, but also just want to let you know you're putting yourself in that position. So I'm kind of ready to delve into what it is to get to know you more as a person.
Okay.
So, all right. So the first question, I have my phone here. It's got my questions on it, so I'm gonna probably be referring to it. So my first question, and this is I think that a question a lot of people will have, regarding who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just who is Nigel Marcellus Taylor? So
Full government.
Yes,
government.
yes, the full government.
Okay.
Yes,
Who am I? I am currently getting my PhD in communication. I'm Black. I'm not gonna lie, this is a hard question because it's I don't really spend time to think of who I am or how to talk about myself in a way that's able to unless it's marketing myself for certain positions and whatnot. I could be oh, I am this and this and I do these creative things, but beyond that, to me, I'm just a regular guy who's just trying to figure out life and trying to figure out how to reach dreams, how to find love, how to love better my friends and family. So I don't know, I'm just me.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that you did that, because that second part is what we want to get at, because we don't care about who you are in these business type settings, because that's not who you are. That's how society dictates you should be.
Yeah.
So let's delve more into that. So who is Nigel outside of what society is telling him or how he's supposed to act?
Ooh, who am I? See, I think a lot of how I view myself is out of the perception of how other people view me. So I think some people, a lot what I hear from people is oh, he's really inspiring, he's a really great guy, and he's really smart and all these things. But I think for me, how I view myself a lot of times is I'm very insecure, I'm very reserved. It takes a while for me to open up and to get comfortable. I deflect a lot. Yeah, I think how I view myself is almost on more of a kind of insecure spectrum of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, off of that insecure perspective that you have of yourself, how do you think other people view you?
I think it's the complete opposite. The way people talk about me, sometimes the image of Nigel in my mind of how people talk about me is it scares me in a way, because I think some people talk about me so highly that sometimes I feel I don't necessarily fit that perspective. So I think I view myself one way, I'll say I'm reserved. Everybody you're the most extroverted person I know. You talk to everybody. I'll say oh, I feel I'm very insecure. They'll be bro, you seem so confident with all the things you do. You put yourself out there. So I think how I view myself, often people view the complete opposite of the spectrum of myself.
Yeah, that's interesting. So where do you feel like that discrepancy comes from? Like from how others view you versus how you view yourself?
I would definitely say my mentality. How I grew up definitely plays an impact, like major impact on that, because I think the way in which I grew up, like I came from a two-parent home, and like my parents were like really amazing, very loving, and in my mind, like I have nothing to complain about, but at the same time, I feel like how I navigated the world was very like by myself and alone, and like really trying to figure out things for myself without asking for help. So because of that, also being an only child and feeling like I didn't really have like consistent friends growing up, I always felt like there was this pressure to always be something right away, right?
Mm.
So like if I wasn't the funniest, the coolest, the nicest, the whatever descriptive word, then I couldn't get anybody's attention. Or if I had accomplished a lot of things, then I would get people's attention. When I really was just being myself, I always felt like I was just kind of like that lonely kid in the corner who nobody saw, nobody seen, nobody valued. So for me, it was I think that's where a lot of that like insecurity in myself kind of comes from, of being that like little kid who wants to be heard, wants to be seen, wants to be valued, but feels like nobody's really like paying attention to me or looking. And I think the amount of work and the things I've done, like people do see me, and I have a lot of people who tell me that,
Mm.
but it's hard for me to like internalize it, because in the back of my mind is that little kid who's like, no, you're not doing enough, or people are gonna abandon you at some point. So like, what do you got to keep doing whatever you're doing to try to like be seen or be heard or etc.
Yeah, well, you're just fucking bearing all right now. I didn't realize that we were gonna get this deep.
Yeah. My
Five
fault, my
minutes
fault.
into the interview, you were
My
like,
fault,
and
my
so it
fault.
feels like you're ready. It feels
I
like
am. I was mentally prepared. I was listening to a lot of like a lot of music to like get my mind ready. So yeah.
I'm curious. Like before, like to segue away from the conversation, what did the mental preparation look like for you? Like, how were you mentally preparing?
So like mentally preparing for me, especially like
No, just for this specific interview. Like, what were you doing? Like,
it
what were you
was
listening to?
Text Go Green by Drake on repeat. Text Go Green by Drake. Sojourner, Rhapsody featuring J. Cole. Crooked Smile, the original version by J. Cole. What is it? 90 Proof by Smino and J. Cole. So I listen to a lot of J. Cole and Drake, and they help to like Drake on like a more emotional side helps me kind of like tap into my emotion, and then Cole helps me on more of like an intellectual side. And then when I like mix it together, it helps me kind of like put it.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. That's
And I
really
read like hella quotes on my phone. So it's just, yeah. So I had to like get myself in this place. Not
Yeah.
because I'm nervous, because like I can feel like I can talk to you about stuff like this all the time. We always talk about stuff like this. But I think sometimes it's that who's watching, who's listening. And I feel like I would do a disservice if I don't put myself out there like fully. And if I hold back, I think like I'm not doing people who are listening, who might go through the same things, similar
Yeah.
love. So
And I think that's fair. I feel like there's always an element of like vulnerability when like you're taking like such personal information and not only putting it out there and sharing it with someone, but you are doing like above and beyond. You know,
Yeah.
like you're sharing this with like a lot of someone's.
But I will say though, like how I learned to like navigate life though was to be vulnerable first. So like being an only child, I didn't really have, again, like I always felt the pressure of the first time meeting somebody, like it meant everything. So usually like if I just came and I said a joke, people didn't remember. Or if I just try to be, not necessarily like not be myself, but if I just kind of like presented myself and didn't say anything, people didn't really like remember me. I didn't stick. But the more I like opened up, the more vulnerable I talked about stuff, the more I kind of created a connection, and people was like, oh wow, he's a little different. So I think for me, I almost learned how to use vulnerability as like a defense mechanism in order to like make friends and to like build connections right away. So I think sometimes like when people are like, yo, you're like real vulnerable, it's a compliment, but at the same time to me it's not, because I think I've had to learn to be vulnerable in spaces a lot.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think it's really interesting that you say that you're a vulnerable person, because it feels like you almost have like this like element of like, yes, I'm very vulnerable as a person, but also you are very reserved as a person too. Because I know that there's a lot of
Yeah.
times where like we will have conversations and it's like I feel like I just try to push a little bit deeper just to get you like questioning things, but you have like this really, you always say like you're very deflective, like you'll like deflect the question,
Yeah,
or you're just like
yeah, I
won't
do that a
answer
lot.
flat out.
I do
Yeah.
that a whole lot.
Very well aware.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely do that. And honestly, like I don't know. I always like use this analogy. Like, I don't always tell people what I go through, but I tell pieces to different people. And if all the people came together and put the stories together, that would be the full context. But like the individuals, you only get a piece of like what I'm going through. And I think that's kind of how I navigate.
Why do you feel like you can only give like a piece of yourself to everyone instead of like presenting like? And it's not like, again, like when you're being vulnerable, it's okay to like have some reserves. You don't have to give everyone everything so soon, but like just kind of like the idea that you're dropping little tidbits of like yourself instead of.
I think it's like a fair connection. Again, attachment style, where you put me onto, fearful avoidant. It's like I want intimacy and I want to get close and I want connection, but I'm also so used to people leaving and being abandoned. So for myself, I think because I feel like at some point somebody's gonna leave, that I don't want to give you too much, because the more I give you, the more when you leave it's going to hurt me. And I think that's where like the tidbits come, because if you only know part of it, then I'm not fully invested into you. Whereas if I'm giving you all of it, then there's more of an investment, which means like I'm closer to, if you leave, I'm gonna be absolutely hurt. For sure. Hurt.
That's interesting. So I feel like, so are you like aware of where like this fear of abandonment is like coming from, or is it just?
I think I'm aware of it. It definitely childhood for sure. Again, growing up alone, not having consistent friends, feeling like I'm a lot closer to people than what we actually are, and then like putting all my eggs in that basket, and then them leaving me or not inviting me or almost like forgetting me in like important moments and stuff like that. So I think a lot of it definitely comes from childhood, and they just kind of reaffirmed throughout life of like, I'd be lying if I said like last year I had people who I was like really close with, and like I put a lot of excitement to like see them, and then there was like a situation where it felt like they left me or they abandoned me or they wasn't thinking about me in the same way, and like that hurt, you know what I mean? So I think it stems from childhood, but from a lot of the relationships I have or friendships I've had, those different experiences kind of like just reaffirm like at some point people are gonna leave. Everybody's seasonal. It's only just a matter of what season they're in your life. So I'm trying to like reframe and unlearn that, but it's really hard. And I think because that's the fear in the back of my mind, I also do a great job of like self-sabotaging stuff. So like if things are going too well, I'll be like, oh no, this is going way too well. Let me self-sabotage, press the button, press the button so I can like ruin it. And then, because I think every interaction, there's things I could take accountability for. I'm like, you should have just reached out to them, or you could have just talked, or you could have done more on your part. So I think it's a two-way street, but for myself, for sure, like it's that fear of abandonment and like people leaving.
Well, I'm curious. So you said that you press the button, you self-sabotage. So like, are you aware of what that looks like?
No.
Like, are you aware of like the behaviors you
No.
You just know that you do it.
I know I do it. I like when I reflect on it later, I could see like, oh wow.
I was really wild out. Like,
I was wild. Like, man, like this, you played a part in this, and I could see places where I'm like reflecting where I play a part in it. But I think like most of the time in the moment, I don't recognize like I'm self-sabotaging. Like for example, like if I like somebody and there's something about them, I always like find that one thing about them where it's just like, ooh, I can't commit because it's one thing. They could check they could check every single box for sure, but there's always that one thing I hold on to, and I let that kind of like creep into my mind and like essentially make it so I don't talk to them, I don't pursue them. And I didn't realize I did that until later, or until like this kind of like place that I'm now, where I'm recognizing I'm doing that right now for somebody. You know what I mean? So for me, it's really just trying to get better at learning what that looks like.
Yeah. I think that it's like, I feel like you should also give yourself some credit, because like not a lot of people are aware that they engage in self-sabotaging behaviors, and it's very like common. So like kudos to you for being able to recognize that. Yay, self-sabotage! I know, yeah. No, it's fine. I feel like a lot of, like, it makes me feel better. I'm still working on it myself. Like I'm like, recognizing patterns and just trying to like overcome them and what those look like for me.
But it's hard too, because a lot of times you don't recognize it until it happens, or like the result of it. And then at that point, again, like accountability, who do you place it? Is it on you? Is it on me? Is it on both? I think sometimes I don't do a great job of like sharing that accountability on like, oh, I played a part, but also they did that too. You know what I mean? Usually it was all me. Yeah. Or it was like all of them. So trying to just learn. And
Interesting. So for you, like, what does accountability mean? Like, how would you define accountability?
Oof.
Especially like when you're navigating a relationship, because this doesn't have to be like a romantic relationship. It could be like any relationship, because I feel like obviously like that's like the interpersonal aspect of it, is that there's some relationship there. So like, how would you define that?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even really have a clear-cut definition. I think like accountability, or how I view accountability, is holding myself accountable. So like based on my actions, and like how my actions lead to like consequences or whatever they lead to, am I able to look at those and be able to be like, yes, I did that, and learn from it. I think that's, for me, is a lot of accountability. But when it comes to other people, I don't really know, because I think like one thing I struggle with a lot of people is just boundaries of friendships. And I think because I've never really like had strong boundaries with friendships or boundaries with people, that sometimes I like mess that accountability up, because I might view you like a brother, but you view me just as like an associate, or you might view me as like a big brother, and then somebody else I view you just as like, oh, you're just somebody passing by. So because I don't really feel like I've learned how to create like those clear-cut boundaries yet, that's something I struggle with, being able to hold people accountable.
Well, it seems interesting that you talk about like other people having perspective about the nature of the relationship that you have with them, and you feel like you are responsible for not understanding what they're thinking about you. And it's almost kind of like, I'm just gonna say it, that's like almost like an element of like codependency, where it's like this idea that you can be a mind reader, that you know what other people are thinking, and that you are in charge of what other people are thinking. So I feel like that's not something that you should feel responsible for, and especially like that's like where communication comes into play too in a relationship. And that's like, again, navigating all relationships that you have. It's just like, are you guys communicating? And I don't think a lot of people know what communicating in a relationship is. Like, people think like, oh, I'm communicating, like I'm just talking, but like communicating is more than just talking to each other. It's like, are you listening to each other? Are you understanding? Like, and I think that like part of like navigating a relationship that way is like, if you have good communication, and it's so cliche to say, but like communication is like the foundation of like a relationship, you know. Like there's a lot of things that go into it, and communication, if you don't have that in your foundation is crumbling. So what do you feel like makes good communication in a relationship for you?
That's a great question. I don't really know. For one, like if we're talking about like romantic relationships, I've never been in a romantic relationship, and I feel like I self-sabotage myself before I get to that place. When it comes to friendship,
I just think it's so it's just like crazy to know that like you haven't like dated and just like, because every time I talk with you, I don't even cut you off, but it's just like every time I talk with you, you want that so bad, almost like you, but you, there's something that's like holding you back from like What's crazy is like my dad would call me all the time, and he'd be like, you find somebody? Aww.
And I'd be like,
Dad, no, don't ask me. God damn.
I'd be like, no.
It's like dating is already hard, but now my parents are pressuring me. It's like,
no, Dad, I haven't found nobody yet. No. But it's more so like, he says it not in the sense of like put pressure, but as like a reminder of like, Nigel. And you know what? Like, I can't even put it all on my dad, because like my friends do it all of the time. They're like, yo, you're a good guy. Like, you deserve to have somebody with you. And I always like,
you got some good ass friends.
No.
Shout out to us.
Yeah, for real. Shout out to y'all.
That's us.
But then I'll be like, in the back of my mind, like, nah, it's okay. Like, I'd be lying if I said I didn't get to a point where I believed in love for other people and not for myself, because of like so much of the attempt of trying to make it happen, and then me probably self-sabotaging and other things going wrong, that like, I don't know, I got to a place where I was just like, nah, it's not for me. For everybody else though, and I want to help everybody find it, but for me,
That statement is wild.
It's wild, yeah. I've definitely said it before. Like, a lot of my friends have heard me say that before.
Wait,
for sure.
But you don't actually believe that. Is that just something that you tell yourself, or do you genuinely believe?
It depends on the day. It depends on the day, for sure. Like, sometimes I know it's like, just, I'm BSing, for sure. And then other days, like, I don't know, like, at times when you like so used to being by yourself, and you're so used to loneliness, or you're so used to like things not working out, like I'd be lying if I said there wasn't like, what's the saying, all good jokes contain true shit? Like, I'd be lying if it wasn't sprinkled of a little truth, but like, I don't see myself like getting to that point, because it always feels like, and this is where the fearful avoiding comes out, And I'm recognizing it, I'm calling it out right now. Because I always feel like there's one thing that messes it up in between. And I would even say, like, even with friendships too. Like, I think with a lot of my friendships that are like longevity or like the strong ones, sometimes I always feel like there's one thing that's going to lead it to end at some point. So it's like, I don't know if I'm at a place where I'm just looking for it or if like something actually happens and messes it up.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like where I've been struggling and kind of like navigating and trying to figure out, you know, like, who are my friends? Who are the people who are like really there for me? Who's like a real potential partner? Like, what are those qualities? So to go back to like the communication question, it's like, I'm learning how to communicate in a way that like makes me a little bit more vulnerable and like honest and open, but that's not in a reserved way. And I think until I could like really start not being as reserved and just be like, I like you, or I care about you, or like I really want you in my life, or I appreciate having you in my life. I think that's what's stopping me from really like creating stronger relationships with different people.
Yeah. It sounds like you're putting like a lot of pressure on yourself specifically, like when you're delving into like, oh, like there's things that I have to do, but also I have to not be so reserved and I have to make sure that I'm doing X, Y, Z. And then so I'm like curious to think of like how you feel about like relationships and like what roles are, you know, like in terms of like what the other person is expected to do and what you're expected to do. Because it feels like right now your expectation is that you take on everything.
But I think I have to. Or like, not that I have to, it's what I've learned that I've had to do.
Where'd you learn that?
I mean, like when you're by yourself, or when you feel like you've been by yourself for such a long time, and like although you have people you could lean on, when you know, like when people disappoint you, or like if somebody lets you down, or if you don't feel safe or comfortable talking to certain people, you feel the burden of everything being on yourself. And I think for the longest time, because I felt the burden of having to navigate so much by myself, and people not understanding how to like communicate with me, or how to listen, or listen in the ways I want them to listen, or communicate in the ways that I'm hoping they're going to communicate.
Yeah.
That you learn get to a point where it's like, I got to navigate this by myself. That everything becomes a reflection of like what you do. I can only control me. I recognize I can't control anybody else. So like, what are the things that I'm doing that can help me essentially put myself in a better position to become a better man, to be a better friend or whatever, so I can put myself in those opportunities. And I think that's where a lot of that burden goes onto myself, and why I always hold, quote unquote, myself accountable for, oh, it's on me, or I could have done this, or I should have been able to navigate this. Because I think a lot of the stuff that doesn't work out probably stems from this. I have something to do with it, whether I'm in the equation somehow, right? So it has something to do with me. So what am I doing to like better navigate and better fix that out for the future? So that's why I put it all on myself a lot of times.
I think it's really, I feel like that's just really deep. I feel like it just feels like you have like this expectation of like, so you're aware of like how you were as a child, and like having to be that sole person that you provide for, like providing like that comfort for yourself and navigating relationships, because you felt like you were doing that on your own. But like, do you feel that way now as an adult? Like, do you still feel like that 5-year-old kid that like has to do everything?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do. I think now I'm a little bit more open to asking for help, which is something I'm really terrible at doing. But I think I'm recognizing like there's a lot of good people in my life, and there's a lot of people who I really can lean on, and I have leaned on in a lot of ways. But I think sometimes it's just refraining my mind and my mindset of just being more open to the help, and open to the love, and open to all the people. Because like, I remember I had a conversation with a therapist recently, and he was saying like, when you downplay what other people do or what other people say about you, you're minimizing their impact in your life. And I think when he said that, I started to like really think like, how many people want to help me that I absolutely like, no, don't help me. I don't want your help. Because I'm like, inside I'm scared to ask for help, or I'm scared to lean on other people because I've been hurt before. So I think for me, I'm just trying to not get back to a place, because I think I'm already heading to that way, but being able to just like lean on my team and my friends and my family and whatnot.
Yeah. That sounds like a really dope like therapy observation. Way to go, that therapist.
Yeah, we're gonna get him on here for an installment
Yeah,
for sure.
it's crazy because I feel like a lot of people are afraid to ask for help, and I wonder like to what extent like the way that we are socialized plays an impact on that. You know, where it's
Yeah.
like asking for help is like often seen as like a sign of weakness or like something to like be made fun of. It's like, oh, you can't do this on your own. You know, it's like this hyper independence that we have revolving around our society. And so do you feel like there's things that you can do to like kind of combat that, or how do you try to combat like when you're feeling like, oh, I need help, but you don't want to ask for help, like instead of not asking for help?
I think like for me, I had to like start small and work my way up. So it's like I can't. There's some things that are like very small that I can ask for help, like maybe like a ride to the store, or hey, can you read over something for me and give me just like share some thoughts or opinions and stuff like that. But I think for bigger things or like more emotional things, a lot of times it's not that I ask for help, it's that people literally are like, Nigel, sit here and tell me what is going on with you. And I think I'm trying to get to a place where it's like me being that person to initiate instead of waiting for somebody to initiate for me and then feeling comfortable to be able to speak on it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who are like, you know, if anything's wrong or anything's going on, I'm here to talk to you. Like, we can have this conversation. I'm like, you know how like people will live like, yo, I'm literally right here for you, bro. Like, I got your back. And I think sometimes it's like I have to wait until I hear that, until somebody's like, yo, I'm like really, really here for you and I really care about you, until I like remember that I don't have to have my defenses up all the time. So I think it's just knowing who's around me and knowing the support and like really recognizing the love, because I think that's where I struggle with a lot of like, who actually loves me, who actually cares about me, who's actually there for me. Because so much of what I kind of like grew up experience, or even in my adulthood experience, was that the love just did not seem to be what it said it was. And that might be my own like false definition of love or how it's supposed to be. But I think because of that, I poured too much in. It felt like I poured too much in people who didn't really love me, or I didn't pour enough into the people who actually love me. So I'm just trying to like essentially figure that piece of it out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think a lot of people are like, not to minimize your struggles, but like kind of in the same boat. Especially when you talk about like looking at love and like what that actually means. And it's like you always hear like that question, like, what is love? That's actually like on my list. I was going to ask that question because I was just curious like what you have to say about it, because I feel like there is no one size fits all for love.
Yeah.
And I think that like how people define love within their own context of their like definition is very important. And I feel like that's something that should be discussed in relationships. Is like, what do you think, what is love for you, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think that like, and that's part of communicating, you know, like communication is like getting to know someone on a deeper level, not just like talking words at someone, but like getting to know who that person is. That's the goal of communication, is like understanding. And so it's like, when you hear that question, like, what is love? Like, what do you feel? Like, how would you answer that question?
I don't have like a definitive answer, but I know like whenever I talk about love now, I always try to make sure I say like healthy love. Because I think a lot of times when people talk about love, it's such it almost does a disservice to what love is. And I think like you can be loved and it not be healthy for you, right?
Yeah.
It could be like a toxic type of love where I care about you, I'm here for you, but I don't have your best interest, or however we're navigating this is very negative or not conducive to who you are or how you're living. So I always try to think of love in a sense of like a healthy love, something that is more compassionate, something that's more understanding, something that's more caring, and you know, like it's a warm feeling. You know what I mean? It's that feeling of like being with someone or hanging with people and just knowing like everything's gonna be all right, or that like, you know, like the world can go to shits, but like right now in this moment, like I'm in a good place and I'm happy and I'm feeling cared for, heard, seen. So yeah, to me it's like a genuine healthy connection. That's how I would like a stronger connection, but it's very healthy and it's genuine. You feel seen, heard, understood, valued. That's to me what love is.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like there's an element of like acceptance when it comes to like the love that you're defining, like healthy love. It's like you don't have to you're not trying to change me, you don't have to understand me, you just accept me for who I am. And I think that a lot of people don't have acceptance when they are in relationships, it's almost kind of like they feel like they like people get into relationships to try to change the other person.
Yeah.
And like you should never go into a relationship trying to change anybody, like that, because you can't. The only person that can change someone is that person. And it's like there's like red flags that are kind of going off before you even enter into the relationship. But like people, I don't know, it's just like it feels like people are so afraid to be alone sometimes that they just bypass the red flags and put their hopes and expectations in the future of their partner instead of who their partner is now.
Yeah.
Don't date people for their potential. That's not, you can't date people for their potential. That's just not how.
For sure. You gotta like focus on who they are right now, and I think that's what I'm like trying to learn right now. Is that like I can't concern myself with the future. I can't concern about my past. I gotta take people for like who they are, where they are, and really just accept that right now. And I think that's something that it's been kind of challenging to do, or to get my mindset on that. But like to be a lot more present in my relationships and really just like, I can't control what's going to happen in the future, but I know right now I can appreciate what I have and who's around me and who supports me. So that's where like the place I've really been trying to like transform my whole mentality on.
Yeah. So what does being more present in a relationship look like? Like how are you trying to, well, I guess, because no, like not to like call you out or anything, but like you don't have like romantic relationships to compare that to, but just like in other relationships.
Honestly, I could say like just being, it's funny, like the therapist I talked to, the one word he used to me is like gratitude. Like just to be a lot more grateful of like, again, I can't speak on like how many people who like I've had creative ideas are like, yo, can we do this? And they didn't show up. But you're right here right now. And the fact that you're right here right now and we're having this conversation, instead of like worrying about, oh man, the next one or whatever, just like, yo, I'm grateful that you even took the time, or you like, this might be uncomfortable, this is very uncomfortable for me, but you're here and we're having like a really great discussion and just being grateful for that. And I think for me, when it comes to like my friendships and my relationships, it's not focusing on like who's there, who left, who abandoned me in the past, like who is here right now?
Yeah.
And who are the people who are consistently showing up for you? Who are the people who like consistently want to show up for you? And paying attention to that and just being grateful and like honestly like living and accepting that. And I think that's where I have to start doing more, is just accepting the love, because it's there. And I'd be lying, like I'm blessed in a way, like my parents love me, my friends love me, I have mentees and mentors who love me. But I think because I don't accept the love, that's where I essentially go wrong. So like for me to get to a point where I, instead of running away from it, instead of like trying to find the one reason to like get rid of it or run away from it, for me to just be like, I accept it. Like, come, love, come here.
Oh, I love that.
Come here, love.
And I think that's where like that gratitude comes into play too, because it's like if you have gratitude for the relationships that you do have, you're not busy thinking about the ones that you don't. You're not chasing those toxic patterns, those bad relationships, because it's like your focus is where it needs to be. You become a vibrational match to the thing that you have. But if you're always hyper fixated on like the lack of what you have, that's what you'll attract, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, do you know like about like the law that governs like our universe is like the law of attraction, and it's like you attract what you're putting out into the universe. So if you don't have gratitude, you can't for the things that you have, you won't attract the things that you want, you know? So if you're always coming from like a lack of a mindset, like I don't have these relationships, and focusing on the ones that you don't have, the people that don't show up, you're going to attract more of those people because that's what you're putting out, you know? But it's like when you do have gratitude for the things you have, I love that like a therapist said that, because like gratitude is like key, you know?
And I would say like this chapter of my life, if I was going to name it everything, it's literally like go where you're loved. And I think sometimes, again, like I focus, always. For real though, because it's like, I think sometimes I fixate on like the opinions of people who I've never met before, or I think about like how certain people are going to receive me. And again, there's so many people who already love me, and they're already like, I just need to go to where I'm loved, the places I'm loved, the people who care about me, and like just really focus on that. Because I think, again, as somebody who I'm so used to running away from things, that I always run away from love, and I go somewhere where I think I'll find something better. When it's like the better is right there, the best possible potential love for me is right here.
Yeah.
So instead of running, just go to where you love.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, always, right. And have that gratitude when you're there too for it, because again, if you don't have that gratitude while you're in that moment, you won't even be able to see the love.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you're like talking about running away from love, because you, again, like you've been single your entire
life. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do you feel like it would take for you to date? Like, do you want to date?
Yes.
I'm looking at all the cameras. I'm like, we heard it here, folks.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. I just gotta stop being stupid. For real.
What?
I just gotta stop being stupid. I say that, yo, there's people in the background and they're laughing, and like, because they know there's like quality. There's quality out there, right?
Yeah.
And there's somebody, and I try to like block my blessing, and it's really for me to just jump, take the chance. You know what I mean? And take a chance with someone who like actually does care about you and actually like you. And again, it goes back. I think a lot of times I worry about what other people are gonna think about it, when like family members, friends, all have been like, Nigel, bro, like just do it. Like go for it. Just stop. We want you to be happy. Like we don't care about nothing else. Like just go for it. And I think it's just me, just stop blocking my blessings. That's what it's gonna take for me to stop blocking my blessings. Really just jump and try.
Yeah. Well, I think that you shouldn't, definitely like, don't minimize the things that you have gone through. I think that, like you said earlier, like, oh, I just need to stop being stupid. I think that, like, again, you're minimizing the impact of like your experiences and how they largely dictate and shape the way that you engage in relationships. And again, like, I feel like if you don't have the ability to acknowledge how much of a like toll this is taken on you, you will never be able to like fully see like this is something that I need to like, because it's more than just you being stupid, right? Like there's like actual things to unpack with this, and we need to give those things the respect that they have so that we can respectfully unpack them with the amount of power that needs to go behind it.
This is why you here, bro.
I know, I like, sorry I got like really serious, but I was just like, no, because it's not,
no,
it's not
real.
stupid at all.
That's a really great point. No. But you know, the future's looking bright.
Yeah.
The future's looking bright for sure.
What do you feel like? What do you feel like is in your future, Nigel? What's bright about it?
Okay. Yeah. This could be the last question.
It could be.
No, I love it. What do you feel like is in your future? No, sorry, we got a minute.
Take 5.
I can't back up. I can't. I'm sorry. That was mad aggressive. I'm so sorry. I said I was so frustrated for no reason. Hi, I'm the videographer and editor for these videos, so you'll be seeing my editing style probably throughout this video. But
animate cuts.
yeah, one of the cameras died, so I have to wait. And also, I went back and forth between 10-bit and 8-bit to save space. I'll put some something on the screen to describe that. So if you see a difference in quality, I'm sorry, but yeah, fuck you guys.
What was the question? So what do you feel like? What does your future look like for dating? Or is that what the question was?
No, it wasn't. We were not talking about dating. We were just talking about the future in general.
Oh, I thought it was. Oh, what do you see in your future? That's what I said.
Yes. What do I see in my future? I see.
Wait.
Yes. What's the timeout?
So what do you see in your future? That was like the cut action. We only have a couple seconds. We gotta go. Okay, stop. And action. So what do you see in your future?
For my future, I honestly like just stepping more into like the love, the appreciation, the gratitude. And I know it's easier said than done for sure. But for me, really trying to kind of like hone in and focus more on the love and like what is there and the people who are like actually there for me, actually support me, rather than trying to go to like all these other distractions and kind of just like stepping into my purpose and stepping into who I am. Because I think it is a problem that there's a disconnect between how I see myself and how other people see myself.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't have to.
Around. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have to like. I don't know. It's that line between like confident and conceited. But being able to just be more confident in myself and recognize like a lot of the accomplishments I've had, a lot of things I've done, the relationships I've built, like. Although I might try to give it to other factors, like I actually did that, you know what I mean? And just being able to kind of like live in that purpose and live in that value, that like I do bring value, and I am like, I do my thing.
Yeah, you deserve to have confidence, and yeah, you're right, you do have value. Yeah. Also, just like realizing that like you don't have to prove your worth to anyone. And you already are worthy.
That's the main thing. I think it's just like internalizing.
If you take away anything from this interview, everyone watching, you are fucking worthy.
That's the one. Being able to like really internalize.
That was my ASMR moment.
internalize worthiness. Like, yo, you are worthy. And I think that's something I always try to like, I feel like I gotta prove, but I think the way like people have been affirming me, this conversation, friends, family, like there's no expectation, there's no like requirement I have to have. Like, I'm worthy, I'm okay where I'm at, and just gotta live my life.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. That was beautiful. Okay, we're not gonna end it there because I have one question that I really want to ask you, and I think it's gonna make some people cry.
It's gonna make people cry.
I hope, but also if you don't cry, it's okay.
Cry.
My question is, back to this list of questions that we didn't even need. So I don't know why I was stressed about writing these.
Yep.
If you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, knowing all the information that you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. Damn.
What would you tell little 5-year-old Nigel that's out there trying hard to make friends and feeling like it's his responsibility?
Bro, I would honestly go back and I would tell him, don't lose hope in yourself, because there's so much love out there waiting for you to meet. And I think something I'm always trying to like remind myself, even now, is that like back then I remember there were a lot of like dark times where I literally felt like there was no, like it was just me and I had to navigate, and I was never gonna find friends. I was never gonna find people who were like really gonna care about me and be there for me. And then I feel like each chapter of my life from that point on, there was always like one or two people, and although it might not have been consistent and it might have like fell through the cracks, I took it personally. And I always felt like it was me. It's my fault. I'm not doing enough. People don't love me. You're not doing enough to like be a good friend, be whatever. Just to get to like this part of my life and to recognize there's so many people here who love me without me doing anything. So I think like I would tell him, and I'll even tell myself now, that like there's so many people out there that love you, and all you got to do is just be patient, recognize it, and really like accept it when it's there.
And it's crazy because it's like you almost realize like no one has to do anything to earn your love. Why do you feel like you have to do so much to earn the love of others? You know? So yeah.
That's a great point. Sin, thank you so much. Come in. Thank you, Sin.
Yay!
Shout out to Zamar. Shout out to Junior.
Shout out to
Haley.
this fucking microphone.
And everybody, thank you for watching the second installment of The Conversation. Feel free to ask questions. I don't even know, bro. I'm kind of like scared.
Right now? Did
no,
we
like
do that?
no,
Okay.
like the people send the people.
Sorry, the people.
Yeah. I don't even know how I feel. We're gonna put this out, and peace and love, everybody.